I'd love to, oh, okay, here we go. I can now see all the participants who are here. So as folks are coming in, please write in the chat hello and where you're saying hello from. It's always nice to know when we're in these sessions where people are from all around the world. I am Sonia Pryor Jones. I'm going to be serving as your moderator for this session. I am calling from Cleveland, Ohio, which is considered the Midwest. And I am a member of the staff over at the Fab Foundation and really excited to be here. And I'm starting to see some friends. I see Katie's here from Schenectady, New York. Always nice to see you. Andrea's from Brazil. So we've got a nice crowd and we're really looking forward to talking with all of you. Oh, and another Clevelander, of course, my good friend Sarah Wallace is here. So we'll be getting started shortly. We've got some great panelists with us who are going to be talking with us a little bit about their experience. Just to remind you, you are in the session K-12 Digital Integration Strategies. And the goal of this session is to talk to you about what learning environments might best look like as we are trying to teach and explore digital fabrication technologies with our youngest makers, and that is young people in school, school-age children around the world. And so Lydia, if you could go ahead and pull up our slides, we'll get formally started with some introductions. Thank you. And the way this session is going to work, after I introduce our panelists and they share a few words of opening remarks, I have a few questions for them. And then towards the end, let's say the last 15, 20 minutes, we will, or maybe a little sooner, we will field questions from the audience. So please, as questions are coming up for you, you can share them in the chat. And Lydia and I will moderate that and get those questions shared when it is time for audience questions. And so again, I'm Sonia Pryor Jones from the Fab Foundation. Today I have Rose Denore, David Paez, Ruth Ray, and Liz, and I'm sorry, David, and Liz White Wolf, who are with me. And we've got this great group of educators, some new to education and some who've been engaged in education for some time that are going to be sharing their journey with us today. If we can go to the next slide. And so these are our panelists. Ms. Rose Denere is a member of the Makers Fellow program at Citizen Schools and currently at the Chattanooga Global Center for Digital Fabrication. And I'm sure I'm messing that up a little bit, Rose, but she's going to talk to us a little bit about her experience there in Chattanooga as she's been supporting the build out of their network of Fab Labs across their school district and community. We also have with us today David Paez, and David is the educator with a ton of background in computational thinking and robotics. He is with us from Spain, or Catalonia, more specifically, and has been teaching some of our younger kiddos up to 6th grade robotics and a variety of things. And then we also have with us Ruth Ray, who is from the Warrensville High School District, which is right outside of Cleveland, Ohio in the US. And Ruth is a longtime educator with a background in environmental engineering and has been working over 20 years in a couple of school districts in Northeast Ohio dedicated to STEM education. And then last but not least, we have the Fab Foundation's own education director, new education director, my colleague Liz Whitewolf, who joined me and the rest of the education team at the foundation a little more than a year ago. But Liz has been involved in Fab for about 6 years directly now in our Fab Lab network, starting with her work at the Carnegie Science Center, and is currently studying her PhD in STEM education and doing a lot to support that with us here at Fab. And so as we open this up, and what we want to do is really focus in on how we might best integrate making and digital fabrication in K-12 learning environments. And so I think we'll stay on this slide and give all of our panelists an opportunity just to share a little bit more about themselves, and maybe start off with when you decided and how you knew that digital fabrication and making would be a great way for young people to learn. And so I'm going to start with Liz. I'm going to go backwards here. So I'm going to start with Liz Whitewolf. So Liz, why don't you share with folks when you decided making and digital fabrication was a great way for young people to learn?
Thanks, Sonia. So I probably decided that making was a great way to learn when I was a kid, because I always enjoyed making, but I wasn't really exposed to digital fabrication until I was an adult. My life would have been a lot different if I had done this as a kid. But I think as soon as I saw the potential of the digital fabrication tools, I was hooked personally, and I am just an educator at heart. So immediately saw the connection between how these tools can be used for kids of all sorts of ages. So I started using digital fabrication tools and learning about them when I was a classroom teacher, and I was teaching robotics and engineering and computer design or game design. And that was kind of the first foray I had into we got a 3D printer and a vinyl cutter at our school. And then I was able to write a grant and bring my kids to the tech shop, which was a makerspace here in Pittsburgh. Actually, there were quite a few of them in the United States, but using my classroom kind of as a experiment almost, I really saw that a lot of the kids who didn't perform very well or didn't perform school very well weren't the types of kids that would want to sit still and listen, and who had historically had some issues because of their performance at school. They were suddenly the ones that were leading the group and engaged and wanted to start projects and lead the projects and would answer questions that other kids had. And they really started to shine. And I think that was when I saw that this was really a way to unlock some really cool things in students.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. And David, what about you? Tell us when you saw the aha for this opportunity for students and learning in making and digital fabrication.
You're muted, David.
You're still on mute, David. Can you unmute yourself?
I think the host can unmute him.
Sorry. Well, I teach in primary from first until sixth grade a subject about FabLab, robotics, computational thinking, and maker culture. But my old work was in kindergarten. For 20 years, I taught with children about 3 years old. And it has been a very, very big challenge to me. But is a proof that working with maker culture in primary school is not impossible, because I did it. And my last technology was my guitar. And I think that is the future in our school. My head teacher takes me all of the timetable for teaching computational thinking, robotics, and making culture. We offer 1 hour a week to all of the students, and we project our Fab Lab to the society, to our city, opening after time of school for parents, for other teachers, for young people, especially girls, and especially young people with vulnerability life. And we did it a project called the Bot. Is our own robot from pre-primary until 6th grade, with microbit, and is the way of our robotics lessons: microbit, 3D print, and laser cut. You can see one, and this is a cover with yarn from plastic of the sea. This is ecological, and you can change. Look, you can change the robot with many different colors. We have some difficulties. The first of all is the teacher's mind, because mostly it's all about the classical contents. Despite buying the European community is required to teach digital competence, but in primary in Spain yet is not regulated, and this is one of the reasons that many teachers don't take care about it. We have very the rules to use many materials in primary. For example, is forbidden the cutters or the silicone pistol in primary, and it's not it's essential, these tools in primary, because we are working with the new knowledge. We need new tools, and the perception of many people around the educational community is not right yet. Sometimes they don't give to the Fab Lab activities the same importance as maths or other classical subjects. But it's our, when you are opening a new way, a new road, is usually you get in stones. No, my work is to repeat again the importance to working by our method, learning by doing, methodology based in projects and cooperative learning.
Thanks for that, David. We're going to get back to you and talk more about that methodology. I think a number of people who are in our session today will be interested in that. But I'm going to move on to another panelist to share their insight on this first question. So Ruth Ray, can you talk to us a little bit about maybe when you saw the aha in terms of the benefit of making and digital fabrication for young people and how they learn?
All right, well, thank you. Ruth Ray, just an introduction. I'm from the Warrensville City School District. but been in education over 20 years. And I started in education as a science teacher. And as a science teacher, it was very important for my scholars to do what they learn, but they did to do. And believe it or not, thinking about making dioramas were really big for me inside of the science class. So always having a scholar, giving them an opportunity to display what they've learned was really, really big. Just in the past 5 years, I've really been introduced, I'm gonna say 6 years, introduced to the world of making and digital fabrication. I had an opportunity to be a suite mate with one of my coworkers in Cleveland at the time, who was who was really doing into the maker movement. And I was introduced in such a way at that time. They were having the small, I mean, it wasn't small, but the maker fairs downtown at the Cleveland Public Library. So having an opportunity, to experience that, and always thinking, how do I get this back into the school? How do I get this to my scholars on a larger level? And now currently I serve in a district level position, which does allow me to, as I always say, spread the wealth in a great way. So coming over to Warrensville, we had an opportunity to really evaluate our STEM curriculum. And evaluating our STEM curriculum, we really started off with some very the low-hanging fruit in STEM, putting on STEAM fairs, really helping everybody understand project-based learning, and all those different areas. And in the last 3 years, we've been charged and given a privilege to build maker spaces inside of our brand new buildings. So now we have a brand new elementary school with the dedicated space for a maker space that we will be putting in place very, 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 very soon. So like I say, the moment where making became important was, my very early years in the classroom, and having the scholars have an opportunity, to show their learning in such a way. And like I say, in the past 5 to 6 years of digital fabrication, which gives scholars opportunity not only to make, but actually learn the skill of programming, and understanding technology and making it come alive. So personally, I have not taught a robotics class, but over like the past 15 years, I've sent many teachers to robotics. We've made a large investment in Project Lead the Way in a couple of districts that I was in. So even introducing our scholarship, that became very important by us investing in our teachers to get the work, to get them to get the training, to put the work in front of the scholars. Thank you.
Thank you. So Rose, we're gonna turn back to you. And if I have read your bio and learned about your background a little bit more, you may be our youngest educator in the group. So this is all fresh and new to you in this world, perhaps. But I'm curious to know, for you, really coming from that purview, what have you seen as, the aha as it relates to how making and fab can really support students and success in their own success in the classroom?
Yes, thank you, Sonia. I am youngest maker. I just came in digital fabrication last August. That is as a history major, and I had an opportunity to become a Maker Fellow for the Global Center for Digital Innovation in August. And that's when I started to become aware of digital fabrication. Even though I went to school in Hamilton County, digital fabrication was not a thing when I went to school there. So I just started coming into the world of digital fabrication this August. I started my work in August, and I was learning how to use the DigFab machines and learning the ropes of digital fabrication, and trying to support teachers and students in Hamilton County. But I don't think it really clicked for me until I started making myself and started utilizing the tools myself and be a maker and be in the be a student in learning making. And I was making a prototype for a project we wanted to teach students, which was to make a coded bracelet that had movable parts so that the students would be able to wear it. And I was working on it, and when it was done and I was like, oh my gosh, this works, I can wear it, I realized like I was doing math all along. Like I was doing equations, I was doing all of this complicated math things, and I don't really know how to do math on a regular basis. And I was like, wow, I can do math. I can learn all these content areas through digital fabrication and connect digital fabrication to content areas. And I started noticing how that is actually helpful to students, especially students like me, who maybe our brains don't really think about math and science and pick it up quickly. Digital fabrication provides to students a way to still understand those content areas, but while making something and having a prototype at the end. So that's when I was like, this work, this is amazing. I need to continue being in this space.
Thank you, Rose. And the way you speak about it, you sound like you've been at it far longer than just a year. And you know what? There's a place for liberal arts folks in STEM as well. I study history as an undergraduate major, so there's room for all of us in this. And that leads me to my next question for the panelists. As you all start to think about some of these aha moments, for Rose, it was making this codable bracelet and starting to see for herself. Oh, go Liz, theater major. She was starting to see for herself right away the math, right? She wasn't thinking about math out of a textbook or from board notes in a classroom, but she was really living and seeing the math through her project. Can some of you talk about some of the projects that you've seen students make that you found to be really powerful for them in terms of their confidence or their content knowledge? Can any of you share more about a particular project where you really saw that kind of learning happen for students or for teachers, actually?
I can share something as early as this summer. We sent some scholars to a making camp down at Tri-C, and the scholars actually created a bench. Like some of them took them home and put them in their parents' yard. But to see those scholars doing the measurements, first of all, doing the schematic, actually doing the blueprints and doing the plans, and it was just like, they were literally mini architects, but they, but because the way that they were working, they weren't discouraged by, by to hear, 3/8 or 1/2. I mean, they were like looking for how to get this measurement done the correct way. And being from a traditional classroom and watching scholars, struggle with fractions and, just different things in mathematics was, it was just so refreshing and exciting to see these scholars. And let me be clear, it was ages 10 to 15. So it was a very wide range of ages, but just the commonality and the support that they gave each other through this project, which all of the benches went home intact, sturdy enough to hold up to at least 150 pounds. So I want to just share that, to watch scholars like learn and take something from beginning to end, and really make make something on their own, but with all of those integrated core subject areas. It was really exciting to see. I would like to continue that work with others.
Thanks, Ruth. Can anyone else share a project or something that scholars, students, or teachers made where you really could see the learning and the change?
Yeah, I can speak to that, Sonia. I added a couple of pictures that I wanted to show because I was really proud of the students that worked on the project. At the end of the year, this year in May, we worked on a project where students had to make music makers. We didn't really give them any specific of what their music maker had to look like. They just had to make something that played music and had a moving component to it. And at first it was the typical, oh, I don't know how to do this. This project is too hard. I don't know how to code. I don't want to do this. But they actually like took their time and went through all of the workshops and went through all of the focus groups and ended up thinking about, okay, what do I like? What do I care about that I can bring into this music project? How can I make it me? And how can I make this amazing? And one of the students, we made a light box with the teachers and we gave them the blueprint of the light box. And it was just a simple light box. And they took their time and coded, like they took the coding to a very like high level coding and coded like each different lights and added music to it and added moving components to it. And we're so proud of their work at the end of it. And these other students made an Animal Crossing music maker because that's something they're passionate about. And I remember when I was helping them with their soldering, they were like, I don't know how to do this. I've never soldered. I don't want to do this. But then at the end of it, to see how they took coding that they were worried about learning how to do and soldering that they were learning about how to do and take all of that and make it into a project that they were so proud of was just so amazing to me. And they got to present it to a group of teachers, which helped them work on their public speaking skills and just being proud of the amazing projects that they worked on.
Thank you, Rose. Liz or David, would you like to add before I move on to the next question?
Yes, I can share. When I was teaching at a school here in Pittsburgh, and we formed a girls' technology club. And one of the projects that the girls did, and this was after school, so these girls had to be pretty motivated to do this type of work. First of all, to join the club and then to actually do the work. But we were able to partner with an outside organization called HURL, Human Engineering Research Lab here in Pittsburgh. And the girls did some human-centered design work around wheelchair users and what some of their struggles were. And the girls decided that they wanted to do a design prototype for something to help wheelchair users. So not only did they do the kind of design, the empathetic design work, but they also designed and built a prototype for a very what the girls thought was important thing, which I kind of like. It was a wheelchair charger for their cell phones that was actually powered by the wheel moving on the wheelchair was what powered the cell phone. So the more charge you want your phone, the more wheeling you're going to have to do. But it was a great project, and the girls really got interested in design. I mean, math, computer science, engineering, the design process itself of like empathetic design. It was just a really great project. And all of this was done after school. So there wasn't any learning objectives completed at the end of the day where we checked off boxes, but those girls not only learned a lot of that content, but also really started to see themselves as engineers. So they worked on that STEM identity or that engineering identity that girls tend to lose in the middle school years. So it was a really great project.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. I really appreciate some of the things that both you and Rose have mentioned in terms of what some people refer to as soft skills, right? But these are core skills, public speaking, confidence related to identity, all those things, and how you can really see them happen in these spaces as well. David, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Sorry, because I'm not understanding as well all of the conversations and all of the answers. I have prepared a resume of my work to reading continue and with PowerPoint. I'm sorry because I haven't prepared for this conversation and you're speaking very fast.
Okay.
Means a little bit to understand you is an effort very big for me, and I understand English better written or British English, not American. But I thought if you asked me to speak one of my projects in a school, sure?
Yes.
Okay, well, Our first project, sorry, because I have introduced before, is DidactBot. It names DidactBot and is our own robot, like a Bbot in kindergarten, and in primary is a robot where you can add in sensors, servos, steppers, and other and so on, for improving the knowledge about programming and robotics, from 4 or 5 years old until 12 years old, more or less, is our project. And this is a maker project. I have one here. Look, with microbit, and this is a prototype, because now we need to add in lessons, and it will have a covers like you saw before, like this. We work with local enterprises, and I think 1 or 15 robots of this are has been sent by one enterprise. We are a little bit proud of our project, and the next years we developed this project adding a curriculum, because in Spain we have any curriculum about robotics or about computational thinking. And in another way, we have done many workshops to families for sharing the workshop children with parents on Saturdays morning, because children usually know more things about robotics and technology than their father or their mother, and it's an opportunity to learn together, and to have to grow up our educational community.
Thank you, David.
Okay, thanks.
That is good. What I will do is I will be more conscious about slowing down and speaking concisely. I would also request, when I put a new question out, that Lydia type it for us in the chat. And that way you'll see the question written as well, because we want to make sure that you can engage in this conversation as much as possible. So thank you for pointing out that you weren't able to really, I wasn't conveying to you in a way that you needed to have it conveyed. I would like to come back to you, so maybe you can start to think about this, David, to talk more about the workshops with families. Far too often, maker spaces that are in school settings or settings where we predominantly focus on K-12 students, parents aren't always able to participate. So I think what you all have been doing with workshops with parents is really interesting, and a lot of people could learn from that. What I'd like to do in my next question is start to talk a little bit about the barriers. We know that there are, particularly in the United States, a lot of barriers that we run up against when we try to do making and maker projects that might go longer than 40 minutes in a classroom setting. So I'd be curious to have our panelists talk about what the barriers are to bringing making and digital fabrication to classroom settings, and what are some of the solutions they've found to be helpful in reducing those barriers? So what are some of the barriers for having making and fab in schools? And what are some solutions you found to reduce the barriers? So who'd like to jump in on that one?
Well, when you talk about barriers, and especially in public education, one of our challenges is funding. You will want your scholars to have all of these great experiences and to have their own experience, within their own space. And funding at times will become a barrier. One of the barrier breakers that we have a superintendent and a board, a school district board, who believes in truly preparing scholars for tomorrow, who has been willing to make the investment, which I've been in other places where a lot of my scholars have had maker opportunities or digital fabrication opportunities outside of the building and in more public settings, such as the library or other districts' innovation labs. So I definitely could speak to the funding component, which will keep scholars out. Other barriers is at times having teachers even be comfortable and developing the belief systems that our scholars can do, and not being able to do because maybe they believe that they lack some of the skills, and especially the mathematics and the science skills or the problem solving skills they need to get the work done. So even building up a belief system, and with not so much just within scholars, but within the teachers, that they can even teach our scholars to be able to engage, in such work. So those are definitely some glaring barriers, but definitely things that can be overcome.
And Ruth, you mentioned the belief system, that the scholars themselves could accomplish the work, scholars being the students, or that the teachers themselves could teach the content or teach the fabric making. Can you talk at all about ways in which you think those could be resolved? What kinds of things can be done to change the belief systems?
So right now, talk to me in about 6 months to tell me how this goes. We have an opportunity to put the maker space inside of our elementary building. And not only are we making an investment in it, they say we're putting the space inside of it, but to even give the teachers some of the tools that they need with the professional development, and an opportunity to be in a co-teaching model in the maker space. So I think giving them those tools to help them believe in themselves. So so we're moving forward and doing that. But I do believe that once teachers are encouraged to do out the box, they are more willing to encourage their scholars to be out the box. So like I said, in 6 months, check us out, but you can check in with us over the next couple of months to see just how it goes as we begin to do some systemic change, in the belief around making and just really having our scholars work outside the box.
Thank you. Rose or Liz, can you talk a little bit about some of the barriers you've experienced or know of as it relates to bringing making and fab into schools and solutions that might resolve those barriers?
Yes, I can speak to that. Hamilton County is very special in that we have fully funded labs in about, I think, 30 schools in the county, so that we have resources and digital fabrication resources for our students to use. But the barrier to that is that teachers are not necessarily comfortable using, like teachers outside of the teacher that is in the fab lab are not comfortable using those resources. And they're not entirely sure how to connect digital fabrication to their content area. So what we started doing is because we know that if teachers are not trained on how to use digital fabrication in their classroom, then they cannot teach students how to use digital fabrication. So we started creating professional development for eLab teachers to teach them how to use the digital fabrication tools and how to collaborate with teachers in their schools to use them. And we also go to different schools and teach the teachers that are content area teachers how to use digital fabrication tools in general, just getting them started into being in the lab, being comfortable just making something, just trying it, even if it doesn't work out, just try something so that they can be comfortable with making in general. We also have resources, a shared Google Drive where we have different lesson plans of how you can use digital fabrication in different content areas. So a lesson plan for history, math, science, of like, this is what it could look like if you are using digital fabrication. So training the eLab teachers on how to implement digital fabrication in each content areas, and also training teachers to work with the eLab teachers on how to implement those digital fabrication tools in their content areas.
Thanks, Rose. Professional development for teachers and that exposure is everything. And we had the pleasure of working with the Chattanooga team as well as the team in Cleveland, Ohio at the start of our Scopes project, which Liz currently manages. And she may say more about that in her response as well. But Liz, talk to us about some of the barriers and some of the solutions for resolving those barriers.
Yes, I'm wondering if I can share the screen. All right, here we go. David, you asked for writing, so here we go. Can everyone see my fishbone diagram? Okay. So this is a diagram about the problem of practice that Rose just very succinctly put together, and she's only been in this work for about a year and already has put her finger directly on the biggest challenge that we have in integrating digital fabrication tools, and that is that teachers are ill-prepared to use these tools for authentic student learning. These are some of the categories that are promoting this problem: time and space, technology knowledge, pedagogy, and integration knowledge. And this is the key that we're really trying to turn here at the Fab Foundation with the work that we're doing with our teacher professional development, our consultation, our one-to-one lesson coaching sessions. Those are tools that we're using at Fab Foundation to kind of turn that key. The other ones are standardized testing, which nobody is working on at the Fab Foundation right now. Hands off. And the other one is actually a support network. And this is something that the Fab Foundation is turning as well. So our community of practice around digital fabrication, called Scopes, has been around now since for 3 years. And our community lives on our website online and also in person and meetups like this and other things. With over 1,000 members and over 250 community contributed lesson plans, this particular community of practice can work as a support network for teachers, or as a professional learning community, or as a cohort, or whatever you want to call it. But teachers need that kind of familial support when they're doing this work. So this green section and this blue section are, and this red section, of course, everybody in the Fab network works on the technology knowledge part, but these are the three fish bones, if you will, that the Fab Foundation itself is working on in our work moving forward with integrating this tool set into school.
Thanks, Liz. And I was just, as you were sharing your screen there, sharing with folks here in our session, you need to start to get ready with your questions for the panelists, or if you have some contribution to the conversation because there's something happening in your lab or in your own experience that can contribute to this conversation. We'll look for folks to place questions in the chat, and we will start to open up for everyone else to join in this conversation shortly. And so we talked a little bit about teacher PD and teacher support. You know, teachers are bombarded often with the latest and greatest new thing that their school district wants them to do, right? Or some general public, you know, kinds of things that should be happening in the classroom. And particularly right now, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. And the whole notion of school has just become far more complicated as teachers and other educators have to think about safety. So as we think about ways in which we can best support classroom teachers in doing this with professional development and other forms of support, what does that look like? You know, if you were superintendent for the day or Department of Ed secretary for the day, and you were making sure teachers were supported to do this work with their students, what kinds of things might you do?
I'm going to brag on Hamilton County again for a little bit. We have 2 innovation coaches that they go in different schools that have e-labs and have meetings with teachers that are specifically in the e-labs to talk about goals they want to achieve for the year and what they can do to support them, what they need from the innovation office. And also we have trainings throughout the semesters to just talk about like what we're struggling with and activities and opportunities to learn more about how to implement public project-based learning and how to just have time to just create new stuff and just make something together. And we had a professional development today where we had time to be broken into different groups to create a lesson plan of what you can use, what you can do in your e-lab. And we were broken down into 9 groups and we worked together with different teachers and talked about, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what machine I have and this is what I think I should use it with. And so at the end of the professional development, there were 9 lesson plans that you can use in your e-labs that are like well thought out and well developed, and you can use it. And it's available for the teachers that are in the e-labs to use throughout their school and throughout the school year. So I think supporting teachers, maybe asking them throughout the year, what can I do to support you? And actually following back and coming through and helping them with their e-labs and helping them set goals and reaching those goals throughout the year.
Thanks, Rose. Liz, David, or Ruth, what ways can we best support teachers? I imagine there are things that, you know, we've had to introduce to teachers that were new in the past, and there are some best practices.
I actually support, and I have to agree with Rose when she talked about the teacher professional development. We have to remember that teachers are. I always tell my superintendent they're the biggest student of them all. So they want to get it, they want to learn. They don't always want to be opposed to it. So I think building them up through professional development and putting them in those professional learning groups also, when they're among their peers who want and like and trying to get the same thing they build confidence also. So even in our district, we attempted some professional development with the FAB Foundation over the pandemic, but I'm really excited about what it's going to look like this year during the school day while they're there in the buildings and and then that time and in that mode of learning. So I think professional development and then a lot of times we had an opportunity to roll something out in our district and a scholar showed the teachers. We gave the scholars an opportunity to like to play and learn and just discover on their own, and they giving the feedback and sharing with the teachers. We had an opportunity to see the teachers become even more engaged because seeing their students have some level of comfortability also is good for them also. So it's all about, the good old traditional, the rollout, helping learners learn the best way they learn. And even as teachers, we have to remember that they're learners also.
Thank you, Ruth. David, did you want to share?
Well, I have listened that many of your Fab Labs are outside of school, and help to the schools around the area. But in our case, our Fab Lab is inside of school, and our project is opening to the city, because there's no exist Fab Labs around 75 kilometers, and the new ones is in Barcelona. And the main idea of us to teachers is planned about formation in Scratch, like a language of programmation, Scratch Junior, Scratch 3.0, make code, and microbit is our first tools. And my school is private, and our is private, but for public children. Is the government pays us, but the institution is private. And we have a plan to teachers is required for them step by step, starting to pass courses about this new knowledge. And we have a new no context aprendizaje, new learning way, I think is the traduction, where there are workshops and projects, learning based in projects. And in these two ways is required to do robotics, many activities about culture, maker culture, and 3D print, and so on. Our big challenge is children, girls, especially girls and young people around the area will come to our school when the school time is off, on weekends or in summer, to learn or to prepare their projects with short projects. And we have seen, and I don't know in English, convenio, when two parts are go on, and with the Disabled People Association for to play many workshops with them. And other association, it names Technofan in our town, for sharing our space for their courses about formation, or if they need the 3D print or laser cut, or many things. Our philosophy is offering to the community a new space that not exists, a public space, because it's despite of our institution is private, our vocation is to write everyone. I don't know if I answer correctly.
Thank you for sharing that, David. You actually shared a lot of great information with us. The idea of a school-based makerspace really opening up to the entire community and the public, I would say is pretty unique. In the US, there are so many rules that don't allow people to come in and out of schools freely. So the fact that you all were able to do that is something really unique. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you to Yvonne, who also shared with us that the word was agreement. You made an agreement with the organization to support disabled community members. So we appreciate that. while you have the floor, David, would you talk a little bit more about your parent workshops? You mentioned them earlier, the workshops with students and their parents. Can you say more about those workshops?
Well, before pandemic, last course we didn't anything, but we with the Parents Association in our school, we have the parents organized it in association. We did it workshops for introducing 3D print, methodologies for recording videos like stop motion or videos video edition. This app of Scratch for creating apps. I don't remember the name. Sorry, is nervous. Is app creative or app creation. Another one about microbit. All relation it with the work of the children in school, but for parents. For example, this little robot, we did it at school, and on one Saturday we worked with children and parents doing the same and program it together. The first, the main idea at the beginning was that the families experiment, have the experience of their children, and because you speak about Fab Lab and mostly don't understand anything. Is informatic, or what is this? Or is a workshop but is not counts in the final note? No, yes, it counts because it's we want to have a curricular work. And for the next time, we want to introduce other things like drones, educative drones, or other kind of technologies that needs laser, 3D print, or and programming. There's not a lot of families answer to this big call. Many 10, 15 families answer. But 10 families with 2 children or 3 children, they are very big group.
David, how many students are in your school?
450.
450.
It is a small school, just pre-primary and primary, and two courses in each grade.
Thank you. I would say to this, in the US, so many of our schools are also funded by local tax levies. And so I imagine if we could get more parents involved with the maker spaces and with this hands-on STEM learning, they become far more knowledgeable, and that changes the way that they think about what they want their money to support, right? When it comes to the things that are happening in schools. And so I love all of the benefits of engaging parents in the work of the school-based Fab Lab. So bravo to you all for doing that. I'm going to take us on to a question from Angela Smith. She placed this in the chat, and her question is, have you seen ways a neighborhood fab lab can assist schools? What is the best way, or what are the best ways a community fab lab can develop a collaborative relationship with schools? And I happen to know Liz, my colleague, has done a lot in this area. So I'm gonna ask that she start with her response.
That's a great question, Angela. So there are a number of things that community labs can do to help schools. First, and the first thing that comes to mind, especially for community labs, is to host field trips for groups. That's a fun way to have kids in your space, but it's not necessarily supporting the schools in a sustainable or integrated way. When kids go to a field trip, it's a fun day outside of school, and then they come back to school and they go back to learning the school stuff. So when I worked at the Carnegie Science Center, we tried to spin our outreach efforts into actual outreach with our mobile fab labs. And so we would take the lab equipment into the school, whether it was just a 3D printer or just a laser cutter or the whole lab itself. And trying not to just make that a one and done visit to the school, something a little bit more in depth. So we would integrate teacher professional development into the visit as well. The students would learn, but more importantly, and I think for sustainability, the teacher would learn. So we would teach them. And in fact, I see Steve Luciano here from the Carnegie Science Center. Hi, Steve. He's still there. I'm not, but here we are. So the teacher would learn, and we would leave the teacher with a little bit more knowledge than when we came. Oftentimes, too, when you go into a school, you will see a 3D printer in a closet or even in somebody's room, and part of the help would be to get that machine up and running for the teacher, running them through it a one-to-one. This is how this works, and kind of leave the school more makery than when you came to it. Another way that I've seen community labs work with schools is to provide that kind of technical support. It's really hard for schools, or actually it's really hard for individual teachers to be able to get all the technical support that they need for if they buy a 3D printer for their classroom. It's often not supported by the administration beyond just that first footed bill of $500 or whatever to buy that 3D printer. So when that teacher gets stuck with a 3D printer, having somebody to reach out in the community would be a great resource where they could call the community fab lab and say, hey, I don't know what's going on with my printer. Can you help me out? And that's a resource that really just doesn't exist right now. There's it's not like a printer, a school printer where a company is hired to come out and fix it. When your 3D printer goes as a teacher, there's not a lot of boxes. There's not a lot of people to call. So that's a really good way. So I would say getting into that teacher professional development for integration, sustainability, and also that technical support that is kind of missing in a lot of the schools around here are two really great ways to support schools when you're a community lab. Field trips are fun and a great experience, and a great way to build relationships with schools. So I would say that's a foot in the door, an easy way to start building those relationships.
Thanks, Liz. And we've got a little back and forth going with David and Ivan in the chat, some follow-up there. Ruth or Rose, did you want to weigh in on this question, ways in which you know about maker spaces in the community supporting schools?
Well, I call many doors for having collaboration, and there are not very much people answer yes. But yeah, the university and private enterprises in technological ways. I am very happy is not a word, but I'm very happy with the answer of Pabla Barcelona that they did my formation, because remember, I have worked with children about 3 years old, and we are sharing experiences and taking fun, and how can we do that? And always they are receptive to help us. And there are many resources by the network. And in Spanish, we said, un maestro vale para todo. A teacher is for all, for all. And well, it's the is an advantage that there's no any law about Fab Labs in school, and we can improve, and we can say error, proving things, and this is good and this is not. But it's difficult in our culture in Spain that schools are open of their knowledge. It's normally is a sign of their quality. My school is a specialist in music, and it's my sign. I don't share with them because it's my own way. We want to crush this culture and sharing with the community, with public schools and with public high school. But the answer usually is not very to have very happy, to be very happy. Is very allowed. No, the opposite of fast. Low. It's very low. Our we have the Fab Lab just for 2 years ago. 2 years or no, 3 years ago, and I think that we have worked very far just for 3 years, and with 2 years with pandemic. But the pandemic has done the interest in technology grow up.
Thank you, David. And it doesn't look like we have any new questions in the chat. I have a few more things that I love to get into with the panelists. If someone else has a question and I missed it, please let us know. I believe you can also raise your hand. And so if you raise your hand because you have a question or a comment, Lydia will be able to see that and we can get you looped in. A couple of topics have come up that I think are worth exploring with the time we have remaining. Support for pre-service teachers is something that we often don't talk about. You know, what can begin to happen for teachers before they ever show up in a classroom, now that we're living in a world where technology is becoming more and more important. So that's one topic. The other topic that came up earlier is this whole idea of maker culture. You know, what is that, and how might that live in classrooms, and how might we share that with teachers? And then the third topic I think that would be cool to explore is something that you just mentioned, David, and that's the resources in our network. The Fab Lab network, the larger Maker network. I know I have often felt that schools in particular don't take advantage of this vast network of technologists, engineers, architects, just really cool people that are doing amazing things with technology that I think could be really great examples for their students. And so can each of you share, has there been a connection you've made in the network to support work with your students or teachers? Or is there a connection you like to make in the network to support work with your teachers and students? And there you go, Ruth, I think.
I'm sorry about that. There is definitely a connection we would like to make. I want to talk about a project we did with NASA. We did a project with NASA. It was our 9th grade teachers, math teacher and a science teacher. And NASA had it that they designed it that as the scholars did the project, it was how to live on Mars. They were actually able to talk to, I don't know what they called it, but it was like they were able to actually talk to an engineer. They were able to actually talk to a pilot and an astronaut. So it was really great. I mean, but it was structured in that way. So from that, it got us to really thinking about how do we do our fairs or do our and as we open this new space up, how do we bring people in that our scholars can actually talk to them so they can learn about all of the skill sets that that is connected to the different jobs and you know with these individual careers so they could begin to thinking in such a way. And I hope I'm answering this question right. Because it made me think about that. And we met this morning and was think about like how we continue to build on the career and college readiness component of what STEAM education and fabrication where it leads our scholars to the end goal. We were talking about the end goal.
Yes, and yes, and you even expanded it to a very important organization like NASA. And I did place the question in the chat as well. So is there, you know, someone or some resource that's a part of our Maker Network, our larger STEM network that you'd like to tap into to support students or teachers? Ruth just shared the work with NASA. Or is there someone you've already engaged with that's been able to support your teachers or students?
Some of the teachers in Hamilton County have partnerships with local nonprofits in the community and also with museums in the community. But I think I want to also reach out to like people that are using digital fabrication in their fields that are not just engineers or the people that we can instantly think of when we think of digital fabrication and technology, just to show students like there are ways for you. I'm really big with humanities, and just to show like there are ways for you to connect humanities with digital fabrication. Like I just recently learned about how digital fabrication can be used in the field of history, and I was like, if I had this when I was going to school, I would have definitely know like how to like focus on this specific part of history and be a data analyst for history, or just like be an archaeologist or something like that's so cool. I would have used that so much if I was if I knew about this, or be an environmental scientist or something like that. So I think working with people that are not just engineer or biochemical engineer, so students can know like I can go in this field and I can still connect it to digital fabrication because somebody else is doing it, so I can do it too.
Thanks, Rose. Thanks, Ruth. Liz or David, would you like to respond?
We need to develop more this question. I haven't not a lot of things to say about it.
I'll talk about a project that we are starting this Maker Fellow season, starting with our new Maker Fellow in the end of August. We will be building out a program to replicate across the Fab Lab network for mentoring, one-to-one STEM mentoring in the Fab Labs. We're partnering with the Makers Plus Mentors Network, Citizen Schools, obviously, and Carnegie Science Center to spread the program that's currently only at the Science Center that pairs STEM professionals in the community with low with low socioeconomic students, high school students, and they together learn the digital fabrication tools and technologies. And this particular program, we are working with these partners to scale it up into hopefully a national, if not at some point an international program. So this is something that will take a few years to figure out, but we're very excited to start in August with the new batch of Maker Fellows.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. So I'm just checking the chat to see if there's any other questions that have come up. I see one from Yvonne. Question is, what about universities? Do not see what they are training future teachers. And so Yvonne, actually, can you unmute and go ahead and pose this question? Because I may be saying it wrong.
Yeah, well, sorry if I didn't express correctly. The idea is, what do you think about universities as a partners? Because I see that they are important in the sense that they are the ones who are training the future teachers. So none of you have mentioned university as a partner that you would like to work with. What do you think about them? Have you tried to approach them?
Looks like it's ready.
Oh, so we here in Cleveland, we've worked with Case Western Reserve for a couple of years now. And they're very open to really building up the pipeline of the next makers and engineers. So they're very open. And I also mentioned earlier in the conversation, we partner with our Cuyahoga Community College, which is our community college, and they have the advanced technology school. So we do some work with them also, and they do a lot of work with our scholars, and they open and offer professional development to our teachers.
Thanks, Ruth. And I'll mention, Yvonne, I know that there are some maker-focused certifications in the United States, though they are not broad and I would say required or even completely accepted across our community. There are programs like UTeach that have started some maker certification elements, as well as the California University system. And then our Scopes project in the second year, we did a small pilot with Cleveland State University and their teacher education program to expose their those pre-service teachers to digital fabrication in the classroom. So I know that's something that we have done in the past with the Scopes project, and we do see pre-service teachers as a key audience for that project as well. So I anticipate there'll be more of that to come in partnership with the right university. But I think you're absolutely right. If we can start to engage teachers before they ever set foot in a classroom, they've already had experience in their professional training and education and already building a lot of confidence, it makes it far easier for them to integrate this into the classroom setting. Liz, did you want to add anything? I see you.
I was going to bounce that question back to Yvonne, because I know that his university does quite a bit of work with both in-service teachers and pre-service teachers. And a couple of the barriers I've seen in trying to make those connections are unfortunately budget, financial. But the other one is with a large university, especially here in Pittsburgh, like the University of Pittsburgh, for instance, there are so many different silos within that university where you don't know which program to communicate with to try to start those relationships. So that's a barrier as well. I'd say those two things really come up over again when I look to partner with universities.
Yvonne, did you want to add anything about the work you're doing?
No, I agree. I mean, here is more or less the same, but we manage with the work that we started in the Fab Lab. We managed to get interest from schools, and then the schools start discussing with the university, with the Faculty of Education, the university, and now STEAM is integrated as a minor. So it came perhaps the interest came from a group of teachers and Fab Lab that was inside the university, and then this interest moved from schools back to the Faculty of Education, and it was the teachers who forced a little bit, or who show certain interest in that this STEAM education is integrated into the curriculum somehow.
Yeah, and I think, it's an interesting moment in the US with an enormous amount of federal dollars going into schools and rethinking how not only to support them after, a hard, tough couple of years because of COVID, but how they might even be thinking about new sustainable and innovative practices. And so I think it's kind of an interesting moment in which we can really, on a public policy side, push and promote more opportunity for hands-on learning in spaces like Fab Labs and maker spaces in schools, because people are a little bit more open, I think, right now. So I imagine you'll see some of that, and Fab Foundation will be starting to get a little bit more involved in things like that in the coming year.
I also, oh, sorry, Sonia. I also wanted to mention that the Global Center for Digital Innovation is a K through 14 Fab Lab. So we partner with our local community college, Chattanooga State College, to work so that the community college students have an opportunity to come use the Fab Lab and also be a part of that community.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's a huge opportunity for people to see what this means across the pipeline. Well, we are at our last five minutes of this session. And so maybe if each of you just wanted to close us out with one or two things that you want to make sure our audience members take away as we think about K-12 digital fabrication. Any closing remarks from any of our panelists? Less than 1 minute. You got about a minute apiece. What do you want people to take away?
2 words. I mean, just a few words. Don't be afraid. Be very open, and know that the scholars and the teachers definitely can do it.
Yes, like Ruth said, making is great. Be open to making. Teachers, you don't have to be an expert. It's okay if you fail. Your students need to see that it's okay if they fail too. So be that example. It's okay. Just make.
I would say that the future of these tools is actually going to be in the classroom. So think about the future of moving these tools out of the maker space and actually into the classroom. Just like we started with computer labs and now we have computers in the classroom. So how is that transition going to be effective if our teachers aren't able to use those tools to support learning in their classroom?
And David?
Well, I think we are in the beginning of the big change of school. And Fab Lab is the best way to unify the digital competence and the new methodology, learning by doing, workshops, projects, cooperative learning, and the Fab Lab is the best way for me. And I am sure I am in the truth. And I think in the future, each school will have one maker space. It could named Fab Lab or Maker Space or any maker, but I think that not Fab Lab. The maker culture is in our life. I did it masks with the 3D print in the beginning of the pandemic, and we have arrived to stay and to stand, and it's very cool. It's very enjoy at my age starting a new specialty of of my career like a teacher.
Thank you, David. And I just want to say thanks to all of our panelists, Liz, Ruth, Rose, David, and to everybody who joined us. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. There are many more K-12 focused sessions on the schedule. And remember, it's free, so you can also share with other colleagues and friends and have them come be a fabber and a maker with us for the rest of the week. Everybody take care and thank you for your time.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye bye.